CFI stands for the Canadian Foundation for Innovation. And this is really leading the whole work together. So along with a very able and really diverse and talented and supportive members of the advisory board. One of them we have here today, is here. We have, and the diversity comes from what? We have the lead contractors, lead construction engineering and management firms like Hatch, like SNC-Lavalin, Pomerleau as contractors, and also we have major owners like Hydro-Québec. And soon we'll have other people coming also to the advisory board. A couple of them soon will be joining us. We have one senior prominent academics who will join also the advisory board as well. With that, I wanted to stop. You have a lot to do. You have a beautiful panel discussion to proceed with, and I don't want to take much of your time. Thank you all for being here. And thank you again for the organizing committee and those of you who have attended and will be speaking this afternoon.
Thank you, Dr. Mtl, for these nice words. Thank you very much. Next, I would like to pass the floor to Dr. to Javier, who is the president of AACE Montreal section.
Thank you very much. I think everybody has thanked everyone a couple of times so far, so I'm not going to do that again. It's just a pleasure to be here and amongst a very well organized team who is not only doing this, but also helping out in AACE Montreal's other events. So you guys are really have raised the bar. I don't know who is the next round of the student section members, but they have a very, very high bar to look up to. So job well done. I would just say that AACE Montreal and the student committee, we've been doing this for a couple of years, and honestly, this has been one of the probably best years or better years or best years that we have had so far. Just next week, we'll have another event which Mazdak has organized, construction data analytics. We will have a prominent speaker who will be coming to SNC-Lavalin's Lava Lab to give a talk. So you're welcome to be coming there. And we are pretty much been about an event per month, I think, this year. So whether you're in the industry, we've been going to a lot of the offices of a lot of the big names in the city. So raise your hand and we'll be super happy to organize something with you. And also, or just simply show up in the events and just get to know your colleagues and the bright students that would be entering the job market sooner than later. Thank you.
The Montreal section, by the way, of AACE, for a good number of years, was ranked #1 nationally in between US and Canada, and we've received such recognitions. It's a very active section, so also thank for all the volunteers that really put their time and effort and lead that section. Another thing I think I wanted to, it's an observation. You could see that we had a problem with the audio in the beginning, right? And then the audio was improved later on, and we heard what they were saying. I recall a statement from a Nobel Prize winner who said, persistence always pays. So never give up. So if the audio is not working, try a few things here and there, and it will work at the end. For all of you who are doing work in the industry, it's not a problem. You have a problem, it means this is an opportunity and you can excel it. You will find a solution. For students, of course, you will find more than one solution. With that, I will stop here. I could speak this.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mtl. Thank you very much, Dr. Javier. Now it's time to pass the floor to Dr. Mazdak, who the student committee is really grateful with for all the advice that he has given us.
Thank you very much, Aram. I'm actually, half of the things I wanted to say are useless because they were mentioned several times. I just want to say I'm very lucky working with these talents. I didn't do anything. It was all like the passion and initiatives taken by the students. So I think we can start the event. I want to start by welcoming the three companies. We have three giant companies here, Pomerleau, WSP, and Turner. I don't think there's a need for much introduction. We'll basically hear the introduction of each of the speakers in a second. What I wanted to say was Concordia has positioned itself strategically as a university that is taking the research into application. So in terms of applied research, I don't think there's not many other universities that can match Concordia, and particularly when it comes to construction, as one of the basically most applied end of this spectrum. I think we've in the course of last 40 plus years, there have been tons and tons of innovations started in Concordia that are translated into action and are being used on the job sites or consultant firms and so on and so forth. So I'm very hopeful that this event today can basically initiate additional connections between the academia and industry. We're here to look into the digitalization and how it can reshape construction industry. We're probably the oldest industry. We've been around for 7,000 plus years from the time that we, the Homo sapiens, decided to settle. Probably the construction started back then. So it's very hard to be innovative and build on top of 7,000 years of knowledge. The one and only way that this can happen is for academia to listen to the industry and see what actual problems exist, trying to reflect back on those. So without further ado, I think we're good with timing. I'm going to pass it to Abdel Hadi to to Hassan. I think Hassan is the first one who's going to introduce the first basically group of speakers. I just give you an overview of what's happening in the next hour. I also want to welcome Dr. Bakchi, the chair of the Department, Building Civil and Environmental Engineering. Great to have you here, Dr. Bakchi. So what will happen is we're going to listen to 3 presentations from the 3 organizations, about 15 minutes each, and followed by 5-ish minutes of Q&A. And then after this hour, we're going to open a panel discussion where a few questions will be asked, and each and every one of the speakers will basically contribute their viewpoint on those questions. Meanwhile, I would like to ask you to write down your questions. So any questions that come to the mind, please write them down and pass them to the student members of the committee. They will collect them all, and we make sure that those questions will be addressed before we leave this room by end of the day. And also for those who are online, please use the chat box to type in your questions as we move forward. So Hassan, where are you? Should I turn this off?
Continue. Thank you, Dr. Mazdak. Thanks everyone for joining today to our session. Very great job since morning from our great presenters from Pomelo, from WSP and like TNT, who've done very great job since morning to do the workshops. We had 3 main streams since morning in the workshops covered, including robotics and AI done by Pomelo, Farzaneh, and Tina did a great job. And like the WSP, Tala did a great job, presented the topic on the scheduling, and the great job done by Didier in the morning for the post-contract cost management. So I want to thank everyone, all the participants today who joined in person at Concordia and online Zoom session for joining the session, and the professors who just accepted the invitation for today, and our honored industry presenters. So without any delay, I think we can pass to the first presentation done by Turner Townsend. Mr. Chapuis, please.
Thank you. Thank you and good afternoon, everybody. Pleased and privileged to be with you today. So I'm not going to thank again everyone, but congratulations on organizing an event of this caliber on a Friday afternoon. The industry of the construction can be proud of you. So without further ado, I'm Stéphane Chapuis. I'm leading the Turner & Townsend Montreal office a few blocks away from here. And I've been asked to provide you with our thoughts, and I look forward to engaging with you on the impact of COVID-19 on the construction industry in Quebec and in Canada, and the trends that we see. So, how do I move? Thank you. So I will let you read that at your leisure. This is a forward from our regional managing director. I'm not going to spend time on that. I just want to give you an idea of where we are and who we are. We are, thank you, a global project and program management entity implemented worldwide in 110 offices and 46 countries with somewhat 8,000 employees, so quite the same size as AACE, interestingly. And we are on all continents. What does it provide us? It provides us with trends all over the world because we see kinship between some countries in various sectors, whether they are in infrastructure, in natural resources, or in real estate. And we keep using the data that we collect from our clients and partners so as to provide more insight into what's happening in the construction world. And what do we see today? I'm going to stay on this slide for basically most of the time I'm given. What do we see today in the construction industry? We see first that most of the trends that we see today would probably have happened even without COVID. COVID has only amplified them and make them more crucial to the industry. When I talk of the industry, it's the owner, it's the financier, it's the contractors, and it's the engineering firm. So in Canada and in Quebec, we have an overheated market, and that's the fact for the last 3 to 4 years. In Quebec, only the infrastructure 10 years plan is worth 120 billion, I think, in the next 10 years. 5 years ago, that 10 years plan was only 80 billion over 10 years, which means an increase by 50%. 5 years ago, we didn't have COVID, 80 billions in infrastructure only. I'm not talking of business as usual projects. 80 billion only to deliver in 10 years would have been a challenge anyway. 5 years later, we are at 120 billion and we have COVID. So the challenge is just bigger. This is true in Quebec, this is true in Ontario, public transport, real estate, all those sectors are booming. It's true in Alberta, it's true in British Columbia. I'm not an expert in Saskatoon and Manitoba, but there are a few projects there which are of massive size as well. On the top of that overheated market, what do we see? That's the third bullet point before the end. It's a shortage of labor and management. So this is why your choice to work in the construction industry is the perfect one. We need you. We need talent. We need people who understand that industry, who want to contribute to that industry and keep innovating, because we simply cannot find enough talent. And when I say we, the contractors, the engineers, the consultants, whomever player we have in the industry, we are short of good talents. What has COVID done over the last 3 years? Transforming the supply chain. Transforming the supply chain in creating huge bottlenecks in the supply. In very simple materials, steel, wood, basic materials we need to do in construction, where we needed a few weeks or months before to procure those, we now need 6 months, 12 months, which for the contractors is a major challenge, because we have price increase, we have uncertainty of price, we have uncertainty of timing of delivery, and eventually the target of all players in a construction project is to deliver it in quality, in time, and in budget. Time and budget here are at risk simply because of that. Very interestingly, because of that overheated market and because of the increased complexity of project, I'll come back to that in a second, we have seen that the industry in Canada, following the trends we've seen in Europe and in Australia, and even a little bit in Middle East, the industry is shying away from, stop me if the terminology doesn't talk to you, fixed price lump sum project, whereby basically a contractor with a design progress at 10 to 20%, so that's really a sketch, in other words, has to commit on a price which sometimes exceeds billions of dollars for the next 5 to 6 years to explain how they will deliver it. It's not very difficult to understand that this task is huge, and the risk taken by the industry to do that is absolutely insane. And because of major problems happening, overruns in cost and delays, I'm not going to mention any project. I mean, you know them as well as I do. The industry has started to say enough. We have to change the way we deliver those major projects. Nowadays, I mean, I started in a construction industry, in a contractor. I'm not going to tell you how long ago, but at that time, any project which was worth more than 150 million Canadian dollar was the subject of a press release because we were listed in the stock exchange. 150 million Canadian dollar. With the inflation since then, probably those 150 million have become 300 million today. Do you see press release for 300 million Canadian dollar project? You don't even notice them. Those are business as usual projects. 20 years ago, these were major projects. Now we are talking only in billions. And we are talking of projects with many interfaces everywhere in terms of stakeholders, in terms of interested parties, many challenges in terms of construction. And we are asking at the same time the contractors to commit to a fixed price. So no surprise that starting in the UK 10 years ago, followed by Australia, and then now Canada, the US are not there yet. Integrated project development, alliance, all of those are very similar terms. They come more and more to the table because the industry, the engineers, the owner, and the constructor need to work together to make sure that at the end of the day, construction projects cannot be a loser and a winner. People have to be equally happy. I don't believe in that. They have to be equally unhappy, unfortunately, but at least they have to share the pain. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So what we see now, and I think it's one of the topics we will have in the discussion panel later on, is more and more contract inspired by the NEC mindset that we have in the UK. So you can research at your own time what NEC means in terms of guaranteed maximum price, pain and gain mechanism, alliance, etc., etc. So this in itself would be sufficient to make the next 10 years extremely exciting. But that's not enough, because on the top of that, what do we see? We see a massive agenda in net zero. It's everywhere now. There is no owner, there is no contractor, there is no one in the streets that can say it is not interested in net zero, because that will simply disqualify the company. So everyone has to come with innovations, with ideas, with ways to mitigate or compensate the carbon footprint. And the construction industry has a huge role to play in that. We are probably the biggest contributor to the problem. And in being the biggest contributor to the problem, we have a duty to be a huge contributor to the solution. So my colleagues will come about innovations, but we need to come with innovations that enable the construction of projects to be less carbon intensive, and also to enable the asset that we build to be less carbon intensive. We're getting there. It's not going to take one day. But more and more, you can see initiatives driven in Northern Europe mostly, whereby the buildings start to be almost self-sustainable in terms of carbon. So they do compensate the carbon footprint that they generate at the same time. It's starting, it will come to Canada. It has come to Canada already. And it will only increase. The second major topic that is now extremely relevant, and that's in any newspaper for the last 6 months, is inflation. Inflation, interest rate. What do they do to the construction industry? Lead time to procure the project is increasing. People are just more careful, more cautious. The due diligence is just increasing. And it's not a bad thing. Due diligence is a good thing, you know, because maybe some of the projects that were implemented when money was just flowing from central bank on the market with excess liquidity were not that necessary and were not that optimized. Probably that's going to change in the next year, 2 years, 3 years. The problem is in increasing leading time of procuring projects, the parameters will change. The price will increase probably, the resource will be still in more shortage. So there is going to be a fight to quality. And that's applied to you as well. you want to join the companies who are at the forefront of that industry, because those companies will keep innovating, will keep bringing solutions to their clients, and will enable you to build your career. We talked about collaborative working already. In an environment that we are working currently, risk management is a major topic. Contractor or 100% across it, engineering firm as well, client more and more or across it. Interestingly, when we talk about risk management, we tend to forget about opportunity management. There is no such risk, it was said 5 minutes ago, there is no such risk that occur without an opportunity. In any environment, there are opportunities, and actually in the environment we have in front of us, probably there will be more opportunities than there were in the past for those who deliver quality and who stand out. And I'm just looking at the audience. Most of you haven't ever worked in a recession world. I have. And what does recession means? It means first and foremost, volatility and unknowns. There are still opportunities. There are still plenty of projects that can be delivered. It's just that the players need to be more agile, more flexible, more inventive, more innovative, and accept that tomorrow will not look like today. So these are the trends that we see in virtually every country. Now, the good news is the market has a massive pipeline. At the southern border, you have an infrastructure plan worth trillions of dollars. Or the Canadian company, whether they're here or not here, or the Canadian company is going to not participate to that plan. Of course, they will participate in that plan, which means that there will be fantastic opportunity for good people to work across the border on massive projects in the US. Second topic, we all know that the state of infrastructure, both in Canada and in the US, is not perfect. It needs heavy maintenance, it needs heavy replacement. I mean, talk of the Champlain Bridge or talk of the Tunnel Hippolyte, which is just closing. So, projects still need to be done. You cannot delay the maintenance of a major bridge for 5 years. You can delay some projects, but not this one. This one has to happen. Hospitals everywhere being built, massive real estate project, natural resources. Why natural resources? Because yes, we do expect a price drop in certain commodities next year. But what is the key word we keep hearing, and maybe more so in Quebec? Electrical battery. This is the new vibe. Everywhere in the world, and you know that Europe now has said that there will not be any thermal engine car as of 2035, I think, which means that all cars will need to be electrical in Europe in 2035. 2035 in what we talk here is tomorrow morning, or tomorrow afternoon. It's the long lead, the lead item of those factories, those streams of works. We are talking of 6, 7, 8 years. So we are in 2023 plus 8 years, 2031. Nothing has started. Very little has started. So 2035 is going to be interesting. You hear about maybe more in Europe than anywhere else, but we start hearing it in Ontario, crisis of energy, electricity supply. Why? Because if you want to propel your car by electricity, you probably need more supply. Population is increasing everywhere in the city. You need more electricity supply. But you cannot supply such electricity with coal because it's not carbon friendly. So how are you going to do? You need to build additional assets. You probably need to go nuclear. Being French, and unfortunately know how long it takes. It takes 15 years to commission a nuclear plant. It used to taking less time than that, but now it's 15 years for the new, even the small reactor. So massive opportunities in a volatile world where there is going to be a flight to quality. Exciting times, actually probably much more exciting times than when we were flushed with trillions of dollars on the market and every project was just popping up like that. So well done to be in the construction industry, because that's probably the perfect moment to be there. So I'm not going to read that, of course. I'm just going to summarize that slide in telling you what we don't do. We don't do engineering. We've got better people than us doing that. We don't do construction ourselves, better people than us doing that. We do everything else. We work side by side with owners, with financiers, with contractors sometimes to help them procure the project and deliver it in supporting them in project controls, in cost and commercial management, in benchmarking what they do, in supporting them in delivering according to their contract and their obligations. These are our values, and I'm happy to go through that a little bit later. I think they do reflect quite well on the construction industry. We love a challenge. God bless, because honestly, given what we have in front of us, we would rather love a challenge than not. We are stronger together because the construction industry is the perfect vehicle for you to work in a team. You individually cannot achieve anything. You collectively can achieve everything. It's probably the industry where teamwork is the most efficient and the most enjoyable. And bring out the best in everyone. Why? Because if you want to be an expert, specialized, in one field, you will find something for you in the industry. But if you want to be broad and general and touch many subject matters, you will also find a role for you in the industry. Again, not many industries enable you to do so. And that's true for us, but that's true for the contractors, and that's true for the engineering firm. The sectors we work in: real estate, infrastructure, natural resources. I'm not coming back to that. And that's how we deliver services to all our clients. Am I on time? 2 minutes for questions and answers. Feel free. Oh. Thank you.
Interesting, very interesting topics. I'm listening to you, and I do remember, like as you said, you know, the good old days. I'm not going to talk about how long ago I do remember either, but there was a time where starting a job and getting it out the door and building it was much faster. You know, it just from a regulatory point of view, and all the commission after approval that you had to go wasn't as complicated as the world we live in today. And with everything else you said, perhaps that's an angle that we really need, you know, back to the academia collaboration. Maybe that's a place where we have really forgotten about, you know, yes, we need to do good stuff, but we also need to do good stuff and fast, because we just can't let 15 years for a project or 10 years. And the best data I have for battery plant projects is like 2030. You know, that's never going to be happening. So maybe a place there is there for everyone to collaborate and see how we can make this faster, not cut the corners, but do it faster and more efficient.
And thank you very much for that. It's a key topic in the industry. It was actually mentioned at the real estate forum back in June in Montreal, where all players concluded in saying, if tomorrow was Christmas for construction and we could have whatever we want, we would ask for a faster permits and approval process. The problem is, we've heard that for years and it's not happening. Why? That's a good question. I don't have the response to that question. I think we all have a role to play to make it faster. And to lobby to the various authorities. The superimposition of the various layers of agencies, authorities doesn't help, definitely. What I have seen in project, and I'm sure you have too, Ajir, is the more you collaborate with the authority, the better. If you just send them your request for approval and wait for it to happen, probably it's not going to happen in time. If you explain to them why and how, and you listen and you truly collaborate, it's going to be quicker. What does that mean? It means more energy. It means more input from those who shouldn't give input because they've already done the work in the request for approval. But this is key to the industry. If you collaborate, you will be rewarded for it.
I think I can speak. But just in case.
So thank you very much for this very nice presentation and,
Thank you.
and the perspective. I like your phrase saying that no risk is without opportunities. So COVID presented us with great risk and I suppose great opportunities, right? So in terms of innovation, I think not only construction industry, all industries did many innovations during this period. But what the general sense in construction industry is that in infrastructure area primarily, that we embrace innovation little slowly as compared to other industry. So do you have any thought on this and how to mitigate that?
So that's a fascinating question. You're right that in infrastructure, it takes longer to embrace innovation. So maybe one of the reasons is the lead time to deliver an infrastructure project is very long, and it's longer and longer. So if you take any train project, which I'm not going to give a date or an example, which could be delivered, say, in 2025, probably the technology that will be used in 2025 is dated 2012 to 13, simply because no one can take the risk of implementing a technology that is untested when it's about responding to a bid worth billion. No one can afford to do that. Worse, in public-private partnership type of contract, P3, the risk of untested technology is just a no-go because the financials will not allow it to happen. So in terms of delivering an asset that is technology-proof, it's a huge challenge. And no one has found a solution to that yet. In implementing innovations in constructing the asset, that is coming. We see more and more drones helping construction monitoring, construction survey, and all of that. COVID helped a lot because of the social distancing. People couldn't be on site as often and as quick. So we started to implement drones. Artificial intelligence will help. Are we mastering that product yet in construction? Probably not. But I'm quite sure my colleagues on the panel will talk about that. It's coming also. What we've seen is that when an innovation starts having some traction, it doesn't take long before very clever people, so not me, definitely, very clever people find a way to implement it after 2 to 3 years. And COVID in this instance was quite reassuring. If you look back to COVID, March 2020, end of the world, everyone confined, no solution. 9 months later, despite everyone's forecast, we had 3 vaccines on the market. Which means that when people collaborate and roll their sleeves up and do something differently, probably, they can innovate, they can find a way to actually deliver what's necessary. Construction is not there yet because we go slower, probably. Probably the net zero agenda will help us do a big bang because if we carry on constructing the way we've constructed before, we're not going to resolve the problem. We're going to amplify it. So yes, something needs to happen. Good ideas always come.
I think we can have one more question before we switch to the next presentation. So we have a lot of questions.
There will be a chance for more questions in the panel.
Exactly. We have exactly. This is only short question answer.
Thank you for your wonderful presentation. I have one quick question. You said like in 8 to 10 years, we're more inclining to electricity. We need more supply. So can we really trust on renewable energy or any other energy so we get more electricity supply, like biogas or something like that?
That's an excellent question, which I guess is being debated in the currently COP27 because it's very timely. Yes and no. Of course, we need to increase the supply from renewable energy, and they can come from many sources. Now, can they be the core of the supply in every country? No, Quebec is blessed with hydroelectricity, but Quebec is one of very few. In Europe, you can see that Europe relies a lot on coal still, so that's definitely they need to get rid of. Can they afford to be only renewable? Thank you. Probably not. So on one end, we need to increase the renewable proportion of the supply, and probably we're not doing as much as we should. And on the other end, we need to be probably a bit more bolder with those dirty energy, if I can call them, to stop them. The problem is that decommissioning a coal plant or whatever takes time. And you can see currently the problems with electricity cost and price in Europe is just, it's more political than economical, because building clean energy takes time, but it can be done. It's a political decision. It's not an economical one.
I understand. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
So,
You sure it works? You sure it works? No, it works online. It was online. Sorry.
We'll stay on the topic of energy. And this, I invite the other panelists later to consider this question as well. Where's the future energy going to come from? I'm curious to know if you hear rumblings in your industry of the hydrogen infrastructure coming to fruition. And I say that with highlighting companies like Proton Technology out of Calgary that have filtration processes that keep all the carbon in the ground. Hydrogen comes out of the ground. It's kind of that you can now produce hydrogen at cost, at scale. It seems like that check mark investors need to invest in the infrastructure of fiberglass lined piping. You know, we obviously need a whole new infrastructure for hydrogen. Are you hearing of this? Is it being considered seriously? It is, it's happening.
Mm.
Okay. Short answer. Great, thanks.
No, we are hearing of it. It's not implemented at large scale for the time being. But again, see you in 3 to 4 years, and probably the response will be different.
Yeah, I can speak to the fact that currently we're going through regulatory processes being developed to look at the early phases of pre-feasibility and pre-concept designs to look at developing the hydrogen networks. A lot of these are certainly not necessarily financed projects, so they haven't gone through a final investment decision. But from an engineering consultancy perspective, we actually have for the last year and a half gone from almost zero to developing almost multiple billions of dollars worth of potential preliminary studies in the hydrogen distribution network. I think it's seen as a transitory sort of energy source, in the sense that ultimately, depending on how hydrogen is processed, it requires a lot of the talk right now is to take water and use a electrolyzing process of separating hydrogen from oxygen, and then transporting the hydrogen through a different means. But just the permitting, the regulation, the laws, the safety, the designs, and all of the I'll say public, private, community, government, and provincial laws around hydrogen exploitation, transport, hydrogen fueling stations. A lot of it has been done in Europe in the last 5-7 years, but hasn't had a lot of momentum. And there are some actually pilot refueling stations to hydrogen with hydrogen powered cars. And I think it's currently something that's actually boiling and coming to the point in Canada where we will start to see, hopefully, with the support of government backing, as well as public and private partnerships, that infrastructure come to play. So we have to think of that energy transition as sort of a combination of sources. So combination of wind power coming from the prairies, conventional forms of energy through cleaner practices in Western Canada, cheap hydroelectricity in Quebec, biogas, biofuel, and obviously decommissioning of legacy plants, combined with hydrogen as essentially a portfolio of energy sources for the coming decade or so.
Sure. If you haven't heard of anyone here, Proton Technologies, what they're doing is very exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's a game changer.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know, I saw one.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Shabi, for your presentation. Now I'd like to welcome our guests from Montreal for the next presentation. Mr. Yuri Bartizes and Mr. Saeed Muradi. Welcome.
Okay, so I just wanted to start off with a little bit of explanation of who is Pomelo. I don't know if everybody knows or have heard of Pomelo, so I'll go really quick, but as the slides are coming. So Pomelo is a general contractor. We've been mentioned as general contractor. I love that we have, you know, somebody from the different stakeholders of a project at the panel here today, which is great. We build construction projects across Canada. Mainly focused in Quebec, but we have 2 offices in Ontario, 2 offices in the Maritimes, and 2 offices out west as well. So coast to coast, you can, is there a clicker as well? And the types of projects that we're working on are pretty much across the board as well. Mixed infrastructure, heavy civil. We've got a few port projects. Buildings, commercial and residential. We also have a sister company that focuses on the energy industry, so windmill, solar farm. So we really build anything that needs to be built coast to coast. So it's really exciting to see the different variations of projects that Pomelo builds. I want to focus on our innovation team that supports all of these projects. And you can see there we have 140 members in our innovation team, and that includes both our R&D and our operations. R&D is a lot of what we showed you in the morning, and we'll go into a lot of the R&D that we do today. But what I mean on the operations is we have innovation coordinators, boots on the ground with our construction teams, working with them to use the technologies and to innovate on the construction sites. We're working on 125 projects at the moment, and 80 initiatives. And when I call them initiatives, those are projects internal to Pomelo, where we're looking to improve how we operate, how we construct, looking at new technologies that can be used within the construction industry to be more efficient. I just have a quick video, and I think the sound's going to work as well. That just shows one of our projects and how we bring technology to the project and how the project uses the technologies on site to better construct efficiently.
Phase 1 of the new Enfant Jésus Hospital Complex, presented by Pomelo. The coordination and collaboration between all stakeholders around the BIM process was one of the most valuable aspects of this tremendous project. To achieve the success throughout the phases of the project, multiple temporary works and mechanical transfers had to be carried out. Strong planning and use of BIM to understand these interventions were the key elements of success. The BIM process was used to facilitate communication and minimize risks way before the start of construction. Uses: site logistics, site planning, site review, site validation of quantities. Uses: concrete opening validation, validation of the deformation of the facades of an existing building during and after the excavation works, capture of as-built conditions for certain sectors to compare with as-built models. Uses: site planning, planning of critical temporary works and critical sectors, 4D simulations. Uses: constructability and impact analysis, pre-construction and construction BIM coordination, reduce RFIs, increase stakeholders' collaboration, reduce waste, avoid extra costs during the project. Using the BIM process and especially the coordination with all stakeholders allowed us to save more than 70% MEP RFIs compared to a typical construction management hospital project. Our involvement in the BIM process, as well as how we supported the MEP subtrades to find routing solutions, allowed Pomerleau to avoid extra costs during the project. We developed a systematic procedure to identify the ROI of using BIM on a project through various analyses. The new Enfant Jésus Hospital Complex, the success story of an innovative project using BIM processes.
And I wanted to show that as an example because you can see how we're taking a lot of these technologies that you've heard of, but using them all together in different ways to construct our projects. And in the previous presentation, there was a question about technology and 3D coordination, drone flying. These are all technologies that we've already heard of. We're using them quite efficiently throughout all of our projects across Canada, but we are doing a lot of research into newer technologies, the ones that we're going to be using on our upcoming projects, and that's what Saeed is going to talk on today.
Last one. Okay, no problem. So, to add to what we already use as technology in our day-to-day jobs, we also have AACEI, which is our research and development department at Pomerleau. We have different axes regarding the AI, robotics, IoT, digital twin, GIS, metaverse, all of those axes. We do research and tech watch on the cutting edge technologies out there and different suppliers. So we define different initiatives. They would be filtered out, then they would be the input into our AACEI process for more analysis and definition. But then if it would be accepted by our different steering committees, they would be passed through our FOX team for development and deployment. Before jumping into the challenges that we have with AI and robotics, I would like to introduce a couple of our initiatives that we are using now in our at Pomerleau with our colleagues, different departments and projects. A couple of them out of numerous initiatives that we have. The first one is data extraction from PDF documents. PDF and image documents. We received tens and thousands of invoices from different suppliers and vendors that usually we need to extract data and keep them for later analysis and records. So we now use natural language processing and AI to extract these data and save them in a structured databases. So later on we can extract them and use them in structured format like spreadsheets and other formats. The other one is using AI to deviation and detection, using 3D point clouds in our as-built environment, matching with our 3D BIM models. And as you see, the deviations would be flagged by a colored coded heat map.
Yeah, and that brings us, is there a slide before that?
No.
No. Okay. It seems like there's a few slides missing, but that brings us to a few topics of discussion that we want to dive deeper in today. So the first one is regarding artificial intelligence, and I believe the slide before this was data quality, and there it is. Found it. Yeah. Yeah. So when it comes to artificial intelligence and data quality, the construction industry, we're good at we have a lot of data. We have a lot of data that even our estimators use to plan our future projects, but the data is not structured. I'd say the data has quality, but it's not structured in a way that we can start using it efficiently and effectively to optimize the way we operate. Right now, it's a lot of manual digging for data, but we want to be able to structure that data in a way that we can start eventually using advanced technologies like artificial intelligence. Do you have any idea how we can do that?
Sure. Actually, data acquisition nowadays is not like a big deal for us anymore. We have technologies that we are using day by day. But the idea is that the data quality is the main challenge for us. What we have here at the moment, we kind of got used to data cleaning process for our AI models. But using data to develop AI and data-driven decision models for management part, bring us another risk that when the data is not quality, is not clean enough, so the result at the end of the day wouldn't be valid. So what we are trying to establish at Pomelo at the moment is just to having a governance of the data. So we govern our data management. At the first place, have data stores among our colleagues in different departments. So we make sure that the data is quality and all the metadata and record data is already collected to be fed to our AI models.
So essentially what you're saying is, you have to follow the basic principle, and everybody knows this: garbage in equals garbage out, right? And if our data doesn't have quality, is not structured and organized, we're not going to be able to use the advanced technologies of artificial intelligence. So the data governance is a big factor that you mentioned, and that's something that our industry needs to get better at. Making sure that the data we collect is structured and has that quality that is essentially going to lead into these advanced technologies. And I think a lot of what the industry is missing is knowledge. It's training. And it's knowing exactly how we're going to be using this data in the future, so that when they are collecting the data and storing the data, that it's stored properly, thinking about the future. And that takes us to our next slide, which is democratizing AI. And I think it starts with a little bit of training, understanding of how the technology works or is going to work in the future. But we can look at some of the questions there. What about the coding and the complex coding that goes into artificial intelligence? Is that something that we can democratize? Do you think that the end user needs to understand the code that the AI is using to provide their output?
Of course, as you said, having this black box of AI coding is always terrifying, but fortunately nowadays we have platforms and technologies that commercially providing us with no-code and low-code platforms with some level of upskilling the current workforce with some more digital literacy. I would say they would be able to train their own AI models. They just need to prepare the data, feed it, and have enough insight about the flow of the data and the pipeline to have their BI models trained and use it. It brings us another benefit over there, that we don't need to be worried about maintaining these models, because maintenance is another problem that we have with in-house development. So the maintenance of the backend codes is someone else's worriness. For us, is just updating with new data and retraining the model just by one click.
Yeah, is AI coding simple enough for low code and no code programming? Because to be honest, I'm not an AI expert, and I would think that I still even need training in order to use the low code, no code structures. Is the low code, no code programs advanced enough to start implementing and using to train AI?
Yeah. Honestly, they are using nowadays. We have platforms that they provide us with like the cutting edge algorithms and numerical methods that we can use there. As I said, we just need some digital literacy regarding the flow of the data that you just put into and feed into the models and extract the results at the end of the day.
Great. The next topic we want to jump into is robotics.
Oh yeah. Before jumping into robotic challenges, we don't have time.
Yeah, well, we got 2 minutes. Yeah.
So I will go fast. It's one of the interesting initiatives that we developed internally in Palmer Law with POM-RCC, which is trying to democratizing robotics as well. So our robotic team members, they developed a remote access platform to our robot fleet, whether they are like Spot from Boston Dynamics, Jackal, or drones, we can have access to these robots remotely. It's bringing us 2 main benefits. First of all, we remove the commuting and transportation to the job site, and specifically the job sites that are like in danger for human health. And the second is like having the remote access to the real-time data, that when the data is not satisfactory, is not complete enough, we can recollect it, and it's a good benefit for us in that area.
Yeah, so diving deeply into robotics, just really quickly, adoption is something that we're learning quite a bit at Palmer on how best to integrate robots and humanize robots and adopt them into our construction sites. And there are some huge limitations that we've found out. And Saeed, do you want to talk about maybe the limitations of an ever-changing construction site?
Sure. Construction environments is kind of like a special environment. It's not something that like manufacturing or I would say healthcare, that we can use robots in like a controlled environment. We are talking about so many dynamics in the job site, so many changing environment. For example, if you are going to use technologies like exoskeletons, we should have technologies that is easier for our end user, which are workers, to just, for example, put off easier and easier to maintain. Regarding the other robots, we always need to communicate with our robots. When we have a job site in the middle of nowhere, maybe it's not that much feasible to have a full coverage of network and access to our robots. The last one I would like to mention is about the site layout. We need to adapt our site layouts to use the robots when we have the programmed robots with the drivetrain pre-recorded. So it's another challenge that we have now.
Yeah, so just to finish on this point and even the next point, which is the human robot relationship. We've heard about in the industry about the industrialization of a construction site. That idea is doing what we did in factories, is taking in the factories, we know all of the parameters that are in the factory, we know the time that things are built, and we have a lot of control. But on the construction site, there's very little control. The construction site changes from day to day, and that's really the limiting factor that limits us to implement robotics onto a construction site. You mentioned the network, and the network coverage is a huge limitation. There's also the site location of that robot, knowing the location and being able to localize that robot and then have it understand the environment, that changing environment that it's living in. So I think those are the key points that we need to keep in mind that need to be improved within the industry in order to be able to use robotics. So we'll end it there. Thank you, and we're open for Q&A. That's okay. That's okay.
One question.
Thank you. My question, maybe it's related to the previous presentation, but I think it has interface with construction. Regarding the net zero energy that mentioned in the speaking, actually I'm familiar with this concept through some education university project. But as I research about that, it's mostly about the product. That means the final product of the project should be net zero and had some certificate for that. But what about the construction process during the construction? Is there any guideline for, because you know the simple method statement, again, we have some resources, machineries, and for example, this robotic technology, again, consume more energy. Is there some consideration for during the construction process to reduced energy consumption or consider about that?
Yeah, I can tell you at Pomerleau there is, for sure. I can't speak for the industry in general, but we do have initiatives in-house to look at our carbon footprint of building the building, not just what the carbon footprint is of the building at completion. We're also analyzing as part of the 80 initiatives that our innovation team is working on. Excuse me. Part of those 80 initiatives, we do have initiatives that are in line with our environmental strategy and making sure that excuse me, our materials, the waste materials on our sites are organized and disposed of properly, and that we're constructing as efficiently as possible so that there is little waste, that we're not wasting the energy to build on our construction sites as well. Excuse me. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you for your interesting presentation. Now I would like to invite our guests from WSP company, Mr. Neil Goel and Mr. Ali Ashraf, and also Mrs. Sylvie Disrochers that join us online.
Yeah, hi. Are we ready to go? Yeah, hi, good evening. Thank you all for being here. I know it's been said a million times tonight, but thank you to the AACE organizing committee. Thank you to really all the panelists who've really given really extremely interesting speeches and talks, and to all of you who are spending your Friday afternoon listening to us. I think it's really encouraging for the industry to see such a big turnout in the student community. I'm from WSP. My name is, how does that work? Which button do I need to press? I can do that. Okay. Yeah, hi, my name is Neil Gore. I'm manager of project controls in our transport and infrastructure division in Quebec. With me is Ali Ashraf, project director, energy resources and industry, ex-director of project management in industry and resources. And I believe online we have Sylvie Desrochers, if everything is good. And she does a similar job to me, except she does it in Calgary, Alberta. And she's the senior manager of project controls, energy, resources and industry. Can I just stand here? Is
Yes.
that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't move though. Which one do I need to do this on? Yeah. Here. Yeah, good. I just wanted to start a second with a quick safety moment, because despite all the nice things we're saying here today, the huge challenges in the construction industry that Stefan has brought up, the beautiful things in robotics. Really, the one thing that you're going to see when you get out on the workforce, in the job place, construction site, is health and safety is number one. I mean, your project is a failure if there's a serious injury, if at worse there's a death. So it's really something worth mentioning today. So I'm just giving you a quick one. Reverse parking. People hate it. But the thing is, on a job site, they'll probably ask you to do it. And why do they ask you to do it? Well, number one, when you're moving into your spot, you're more visible, you're more predictable. And when you leave your spot, well, you're facing forward, and you'll have less problems with fog in the windows, with ice, with whatever. And the biggest thing is when you're leaving, if there's a problem on site, you might have to evacuate a site. It's a quicker evacuation procedure. I want to spend a few seconds just talking about WSP. WSP is a global company. We're 8,000 in Canada, probably more. I'm not quite sure if this is exactly up to date. 10,000 in the US.
big presence in Scandinavia and the northern European countries, a big presence in the UK and Ireland. Basically a presence on all 6 continents. I guess we don't have an office yet in Antarctica, do we?
Not yet.
So anyway, it really comes down to like 55,000 employees, 561 offices, 48 countries, and like revenues of about $8 billion in 2021. So, that was all done basically with acquisitions. WSP from where I'm from started as a Quebec company, a relatively small engineering firm that basically has grown. Our market segments in Canada, just to give you a little bit of an idea, we have buildings, so that basically includes anything from hospitals, schools, sports facilities, you name it. We have transport and infrastructure. That's the department I'm presently in. So it's roads, highways, municipal infrastructures like parks and whatnot. Anything kind of underground, like water with, anything that goes through a conduit. So wastewater, fresh water, things like that. Earth and environment, which is basically geotech, environmental studies, that kind of thing. And energy resources and industrial, which could be like, petrochemical industries, oil and gas, you name it, Ali. You could probably,
yeah, mining, manufacturing, metals manufacturing, any major CapEx project typically will fall in that space as well.
So basically, what do we do? Well, we are a service company. So basically an engineering service company. So in other words, what Stefan was saying, he does everything except for, well, we're the part that does the engineering.
Yeah.
So we do many things. It's basically advisory services. So it's, the client coming to us and saying, what do we do? And then we get into other things like design services. So they more or less already know what they're doing, but they want us to do it, smart solutions and digital solutions. I know you had a little bit of an idea.
Yeah,
on that,
I think
Sally.
with respect to sort of the general things in terms of the digitization of the economy, what we consider smart solutions essentially based on sort of 4 key pillars. So resilience and sustainability, similar to the net zero, but also climate resilience and engineering resilience. We have design structures that last for 40, 50, 60 years. And as we've seen through global climate change and as well as, changing in world power and politics, designing engineering solutions that are resilient and infrastructure systems that are resilient is super critical. We talk also about interconnectedness and connectivity. So this is really more about the digitization sphere. So everything from instrument measurement, big data, AI, advanced control systems. Ultimately, we've also seen a transformation of booking systems, meeting rooms, smart HVAC, energy efficiency, and also about community. And ultimately, the products we design and services that we render are tied towards, the public use and public goods. So we have to remember that whether it be on the management side, on the construction side, on the engineering side, realistically, this industry is all about providing a service for public use, whether it be natural resources, energy, heat, buildings, automobiles, hospitals. Our industry is tied to ultimately providing a service for public use. And SMART regroups all of that digital transformation at WSP with that.
Right. Second, planning services, and finally, my clicker doesn't work.
Yeah.
Project delivery services. You can go to the next slide. What I decided to do, we have tons of disciplines and tons of sort of sub-services in that. You can click like 3 times basically. But I wanted to look at the design services, and it's certainly not a complete list, but it is kind of representative of what WSP does. So, we're involved in all sorts of things, whether it's, acoustics, noise and vibration design, or bridges and roads and things that, you see every day and, that they're very common, but, we do wind engineering. I wouldn't say we engineer the wind, but we engineer systems that take advantage of the wind. Basically the list goes on and on. So it's very, we're very diverse kind of company in terms of the services that we provide.
Yeah. Go next slide. Yeah. Next slide, yes. Yeah, oh, yeah. Oh, I don't have the clicker. Oh.
Yeah, so anyway, so WSP office is basically all over Canada locally. 9 out of 10 provinces, we work in Canadian and international projects. That means, we do engineering, work abroad here in our Montreal offices, and we work, really you can be on a mega project that will last 3 years, where capital costs of the project could be in the billions, the engineering services are in the, the tens of millions. Or you can be on a very short, small mandate where, you're go to the next slide, please. So sorry, well, if you go back, sorry. Yeah, sorry. No problem. So we work in all sorts of different environments. Some of them mentioned, consortiums, which are probably in a way, an advantageous kind of way right now. Customer alliances, CICIEM projects, etc. And it is a question of finding, I guess, the right balance between sharing the risk between different parties.
Yeah. Yeah, what's Stefan said about the change of the industry towards moving away from fixed cost lump sum projects is actually true. We've seen also our company just evolve from moving away from taking on risk, just given a lot of volatility to commodity procurement and sources. So certainly the entire organization globally has changed its stance with respect to how projects should be delivered. There's always the upside of fixed cost projects, meaning that there's the through proper project controls, planning, scheduling, and a lot of stuff that the ACI does, that there's obviously a lot of opportunity, but given a lot of the current market conditions, we certainly see a lot of risk and volatility as well. So the way we deliver projects, at least engineering projects, in close collaboration with contractors and management entities, has shifted dramatically. And a lot of the way the contracts are signed with public entities, private entities, financing structures with banks, and so on, has also evolved, which makes it honestly very dynamic and very fun place to be.
I just wanted to show you guys a few interesting projects. I've got one that I really like, and I think Pomerleau, you might like it. We've been involved in many things. So, I'm just showing a few of the bigger projects in the recent past that we've been involved with. So roads, the Turcotte interchange revamp that, probably started, I don't know, construction 6 years ago, which finished probably. Yeah, a little more than that finally, so we did design there. I think we were on site. Really it comes down to a lot of things. I mean, how do you innovate, and how do you collaborate with players in a different way?
Yeah.
And how do you build it safely and on schedule?
And to touch your question about one of the great things about the Turcotte change was, as we were demolishing a lot of the old concrete structures, there was an entire concrete recycling facility that had to take all of that rebar and concrete and split it and sort it into different facilities. And a lot of the crushed concrete using mega equipment, there was an entire plant recycled, because the worst thing you can do is essentially import a lot of fill and materials and essentially throw it. So working with the city of Montreal and the Quebec province, as well as the contractors, we actually ended up recycling a fair amount of concrete and soil through soil remediation. A lot of that had for 50, 40, 60 years. And so just from a cost savings perspective, the management around reusing construction materials, reusing concrete, crushing it, using it as a fill, and throwing it back into the process of construction was a strong green initiative that really saved millions of dollars and also made the project a lot greener in execution.
I'm just showing you a little bit of a not random project. I worked on that years ago. I mean, we did engineering for a gold mine in Burkina Faso. So you've got a beautiful, beautiful picture of a couple of mills. Some underground infrastructure projects for a mining company. Various buildings. So it's kind of interesting. You see kind of sports facilities, commercial,
yeah,
what do you call it, heritage type buildings, etc. This was the one I was talking about that we worked on. This is an environment project that Pomerleau built actually along the St. Lawrence River, where we built a confinement wall with 128 wells where we were pumping out a whole bunch of guck that was basically in the groundwater, because all that area that you see behind the highway was, for the last 100 years, basically a dump. And, just hats off to Pomerleau, because it was a very difficult project that was actually not designed by us, thank God, but it was kind of badly designed. And had we not had their sort of skill behind it, the client, which was the Bridge Commission or the Bridge Corporation, would have been in quite a bit of trouble. I just want to do a quick recap on project controls, because that's really, I guess, why we were here today. I'm going to skip this slide, but I want to ask the question, what is project control? And I'm just going to go through it really quick because we don't have too much time, and I will leave my stand up for another day, okay? But the answer really, it really comes down to I think 4 key words, it's tools, it's processes, it's skills, and it's experience, So in essence, the last 2 are really related to the people that are on the project. So if you wanted to define it, and this is not my definition, but it is a good one. It's the tools, the processes, the people and the skills and experience that when integrated together provide the right information at the right time so the right decision is made. They can talk about all the little nitty gritty that we spoke about this morning, but on a higher level, that's really what you want to do. You have to be on top of the project. You have to understand the trends that are going on, whether they're directly related to the work that you've done, or if it's more of a global type thing. But you got to understand, you got to have all that information, and that it's got to be ready to make a correct decision so the project can move on correctly.
Yeah.
Really ultimately it's to positively influence the time, the scope, and the cost of a project. Really, that's what it comes down to. What is project? Oops, good, thank you. Just quickly, it's data gathering, it's data management, it's data analysis, but most importantly, it's communication. Because you can do the best job in the world on the first 3. If you haven't communicated the results properly, or if you haven't communicated them practically at all, it's like if they haven't been done. You really need to be able to not sell yourself, but to sell the problem and the solution, more importantly.
Yeah, I can speak, to Anil as well, to personal experience where we have the best planners, the best project controllers, the best cost analysis. We can go into details about WBS structures, P6 schedules, level 5 activities, cost estimatings, profitability, margin operability. But in the end, in all the big data we have, in the end, if those ideas, if those projects, if they can't be sold, if we can't get people around the table to agree on, because let's face it, projects, whether it be in planning, construction, or engineering, are all about solving problems. If it was easy, anyone can do it. The fact that you guys are following your degree is a testament to the fact that you've chosen potentially a career where you want to solve difficult problems, and I commend. It's really about bringing people together. So ultimately, project controls and what the work that the AACEI does, these are tools, systems, skills, and experience that allow people to come together and deliver fantastic things.
I'm going to skip a few slides because I think we have a minute or 2 left, and I don't want to go over. But maybe some of the challenges facing project control today. I think one thing has to do with education and culture, and it's especially keeping non-project control staff engaged in the process, because the work you're doing definitely depends on if you're on site, it's going to be your superintendents, and if you're in the office, it's your discipline managers and your engineering managers and things like that. But the thing is, they're feeding you information, or you're going to get information, and like you said, in AI, it's garbage in, garbage out, right? So you gotta keep everybody engaged in what you're doing so that you can do your job and correctly, provide insight into the project. Sometimes goals are not necessarily realistic up front. You got to stay innovative, and that's like in any kind of endeavor. You got to keep up with technology, and you got to find qualified staff, and you have to retain them. You know, I don't really think we have time right now to go into any depth on all of those, but those are some of some major issues that are facing that we face right now in our everyday life. Careers at WSP, go to WSP.com. They're all there. Like I can tell you is that really, if I look on the website today, there's probably like 15 jobs for young engineers right now. You know, it's a good time for you.
Yeah, it's a great
if you're
time,
interested
actually.
in doing this sort of thing, if you're interested in project controls, go look there. If you're looking to do anything else in engineering, go look there. I have a picture of a girl there. She helped me do the presentation. She's a great engineer in roads and bridges. She helped me make the presentation. She was involved in a temporary internship in our company where she was able to go to Stockholm for 4 weeks and sort of learn about their procedures and things like that. It was a great trip. It was a good opportunity for her. She's in Bulgaria there because she went there for the weekend when she was with her team out there. You know, the future's open to you. I mean, there's so many cool jobs. You know, any one of these 3 firms can give you like wonders, really.
Come find us.
honestly. So stay in the field. Don't drop out. And thank you very much.
Yeah.
So we have for one question. Yeah. Okay.
Not a problem. Yep.
Thank you for your interesting presentation. Right now, I would like to invite Dr. Nickbach for launching the discussion session.
First off, thank you so much for your patience. I mean, I truly enjoyed what 5:30, and as it was said, it's a Friday night. The good news is we're in St. Catherine, so in the middle of all the good things that are going to happen. And I promise that by 6, we're all off to doing important stuff in St. Catherine. Thank you so much, all the 3 firms. It was an absolutely interesting conversation and presentations. I always thought there are tons of opportunities for academia to invite industry to come and talk. What I've never thought about, it's great that we invite industry to talk to one another. And that's even another, I mean, takes everything into another level. There were a few questions that we were to discuss, but if you don't mind, I will ask different questions because I think after listening to your presentations, I think there is a lot more interesting. There are a lot of more interesting things that we can talk about. So I'm going to start with I'm trying to formulate my questions around innovation and how innovation can give a push to the industry. And I'm going to ask the questions under innovation with respect to products, innovation with respect to processes, and innovation with respect to the culture. And even though I'm going to ask each of these questions from one of the companies, please feel free to basically address the question from the other perspectives. So, can I put you guys on the spot for the first one? I'm going to start with product, because it appears that, I mean, we're familiar with Pomerleau, and we know that you are basically in the technology development from the perspective of products, like bringing in the spot to the site and so on and so forth. So what do you consider the major challenges? I want to focus, like we heard about all the good things. What are the major challenges of automating the sites when you bring in the technology in terms of the products that you bring in for data acquisition and so forth? What are some of the major challenges? Hear forever about human-robot interactions, and some people are skeptic about it, and like, what about this is the new slavery? What about I'm out of job, and so on and so forth. So do you have any comments on that?
Well, we touched on it. Into a space that is unknown, it doesn't work. It's sorry, thank you. It's very challenging. So Saeed you can probably talk about some of the solutions that we're talking about at Pomelo, but essentially we need to train a robot or an artificial intelligence to understand how that construction site is ever changing.
Exactly. Thank you. About using, for example, robot on a construction job, what we need to add like environmental intelligence. We don't need to follow a robot and to just teach it for each and every step of, for example, data acquisition. So we need just to improve our capability and equip our robots and our equipment with the models, AI models, I would say, that they can learn how to learn. So it's another level of implication. Regarding the confrontation with the people on the job site, yeah, it's always when you go, for example, with the miracle like Boston Dynamic spot over there, so everyone is so excited. Some people take pictures, some people just are so skeptical. Hey, you are going to replace me? No, technology, whether it's robotics, AI, or any other technology, is not there to replace human being. It's just there to improve the productivity, just improve the efficiency and remove the non-value added processes, improve the health and safety on our job sites. So that's the main inception. That's what we are trying, that's the message that we are trying to transfer to our workforce. Another problem that we have is, sorry, I'm continuing with the problems. Another challenge that we have, for example, with the computer vision solutions that we developed for our job sites, we had a problem and challenges with the unions. They don't like to be recorded. People, when they see the camera, they just start to be sensitive. So we need to educate our colleagues, our people, to show them, hey, we are not recording anything of you. It's just an entity. It's not you personally. Yeah. So that's another thing.
So that's probably closely related to the change of culture, right? I want to add two small funny stories. One, we've been forever, as you know, we've been forever trying to develop systems for tracking human on the side, not for spying on them, but for better understanding the workspaces and their need for workspaces. I've been personally trying for 3, 4, 5 years. It's never ever happened. Like everybody was warning me against, forget about it. There's no way that you can put any devices on anyone and track them on the side. Until COVID happened. And thanks to COVID, then with SNC, we had like a project. The project was canceled at the end, but Union actually was for the first time asking, yeah, we need to track people for the sake of health and safety, because if we are deciding between either closing down or shutting down the site or being able to track people. So that's the first. The second one is, which is even more like funnier. You mentioned exoskeletons. So we've been putting together a proposal about exoskeletons and how they can improve the productivity. And we face a lot of basically resentment and the fact that, no, you cannot do that. You can only package this under safety and health. Because if you're showing that using exoskeleton or any type of human robot integration can improve the productivity, then you will, like, Union will jump at you and will say, oh, okay, no, this can't happen. You want me to work more and get paid less? Or, and the answer is no. You can change the method of payment. You shouldn't forever pay people for the number of hours that they're working. It can be for the amount of work that they generate. So I can't agree more. And I get back to you. Do you have something to add?
Yeah, just add two comments to what you were saying. It's very interesting in terms of tracking. Of course, we touched on it in Pomelo as well. When COVID hit, we were looking for those contact tracing solutions that are going to help us understand how a pandemic is affecting our workforce. And we dealt with the same thing. We don't want to track our employees. Privacy is very important, but the information that is collected can be generalized. It doesn't need to be tied to a person. And I think that's part of the misunderstanding about tracking people on a construction site. I don't want to know that Saeed on a construction site is where he's going and what he's doing on the construction site. I just want to know that there's a person at Pomelo who's in that location, who's in that room, that's doing work in that section. So making the information generalized is going to be a big step. And then, of course, informing how the technology works and the type of information that we're gathering is going to make huge steps into using that technology.
Well
on
said.
construction sites.
Yeah, well said.
Fully matter of time. I mean, if we look at the Industrial Revolution and we've seen massive growth in robotics and through manufacturing. So if you think of Amazon and as an example, and a lot of warehouses where virtually all of their point of sales and all their different distribution warehouses are pretty fully automated. We're talking about now Amazon sending drones to deliver packages, an example. If you go to any of their warehouses, conventional warehouse jobs, which are for all intents and purposes, as compared to a construction site, very clean environments. They're dust free. All the pallets, all the stock, producing thousands and thousands of pounds of good a second are well organized. Construction sites are muddy. It's mud. We play in the dirt, we play in the ground, and we convert sticks and stones to develop structures and materials and fibers and things that ultimately resist natural elements. Fundamentally, though, it'll catch up. We've already seen for some heavy equipment like cranes, whereas you had operators now, like we just think of the agricultural industry. Farmers used to drive their own tractors. Now, if you look at mega farming in the United States and other agrarian states, all the tractors are all automated. I mean, these John Deere things are all digitized. They all use digital tracking, and most of the major agricultural systems are all automated, fully automated. These things drive by themselves, and you've got someone that may be in the cockpit or behind a control room or computer controlling the overall extraction. So with heavy equipment, mobile equipment, cranes, pile driving machines, we're actually seeing now major contractors starting to innovate with that heavy equipment being automated via joysticks, data pads, and so on. We're seeing now where the operator is not actually in the cabin, but actually potentially, a removed distance. Part of it's a safety thing, and part of it's just it's cheaper and faster and less prone to error. So it's just starting. We're just starting to see now the automation of heavy and mobile equipment. I don't know if it'll take some time, but that cultural innovation is already happening. You could argue about the pros and cons about the change of the warehouse and slashing jobs. You can argue about the pros and cons of farmers being replaced by machines. That's life.
Yep, sure. And I can testify as the representative from academia that in terms of tool development and product development for enabling these technologies, we've been ready. We've been born ready, and we've been ready to none of these things are new to at least R&D at academia. At least since 2015, we've been doing all these sort of things. So I think the major thing is how these products can change its process and then the culture. So in the interest of time, I want to also hear from Stephen and the other side of the table, but if you allow me, I want to move on to process. You mentioned, Ali, you mentioned Neil, and also Sylvie, please feel free to join if you have some points about the sustainability and resilience. And I heard through your presentation that circularity was the next thing. So basically, we need to do deconstruction and reconstruct with the existing material because of the shortage of the material that we're facing. Can this change meaningfully or drastically change the entire process of construction? So we're not linear anymore. We cannot build without caring about where the energy comes from. We cannot basically be ignorant on where the material comes from. How do you guys think this will change the process? And also, this is a question for both basically Turner and WSP, whoever wants to start. I think Sylvie, do you want to start taking this?
Yeah, I can speak from an engineering standpoint. Within WSP, we found this to become more of a requirement from our client to think about the holistic approach of the engineering. So having this end goal in mind and being a greener way to construct, reusing the material. So obviously, when you plan a project, you will have to consider that into your timing, right? Because if you have to reuse some of the material, you cannot go straight forward to the traditional construction.
And I think it's sorry, Sylvie, but I think it's important to say that it has to be designed into the project and not just an afterthought. you know?
No, exactly. It's upfront, right? It's a different culture, different approach, different requirement of the entire project. And like Ali was mentioning earlier in the discussion, it also has a cost impact, a cost saving, as well as the green aspect of it.
Stephen and Didi, I think this is also related back to the integrated, I mean, bringing everybody on early on and work together. So do you have something to add into it before we bring back from you?
So we have a good example with what we're doing on mine closure currently, because it's of common knowledge that creating a mine, operating a mine requires some investment, but up to recently, the mine owner were not too familiar with how are they going to deal with their asset once the asset has exhausted its life. And we're getting there now. There are massive mines to be closed in Canada and in North America in the next 10 years. We are only scratching the surface, but we are realizing that the owner, and with the net zero agenda and the environmental constraints, which are absolutely right, become way more astute to that topic, because we cannot just use the natural resources that the earth is providing us. We need to give back, and we are implementing with them ways to do so in the most carbon neutral way, so that eventually when the mine is closed, you and I cannot ever guess that there was a mine there before. And it's going to require massive investments from the mine owners. So that's what we see. In the infrastructure as well, there are new ways of building some assets. I have in mind that a power station for train project can be manufactured off-site and basically retrofit immediately on site, as opposed to be built there. Sometimes it has got some interest in terms of timing, of cost, and of carbon footprint as well. But going to the culture aspect, what is absolutely fascinating in the new ways of delivering project, we've talked about alliance, is that on a traditional method, firms that would be selected to build the project are evaluated technically, construction methodology, technical and experience, and price. Now there's a third dimension that's completely new: collaborative behavioral assessment. This did not happen before. So what is that? Is that suddenly companies which are going to be asked to build massive pieces of assets, whether it's real estate or infrastructure, not only are asked to be competent technically, but they need to have soft skills. And that's a revolution in the industry, because we are moving away from an us and them relationship to an all-together relationship. And that's going to probably foster a lot of innovation, because the bottom line of the project is not going to be the number one criterion. The number one criterion probably will be quality of the product. How does that tackle the net zero agenda and the carbon footprint? What is best for project, as opposed to what is best for me or what is best for you? And all of us here, we have a role to play to help that going forward. Is it going to cost more? Probably not, but there will be a learning curve that I heard it before. Never give up. It's going to be more difficult before it gets easier, but probably in 5 years from now, the construction industry will look different.
Right. So maybe this migration from zero-sum game into something different, hopefully, if it happens, most revolutionized thing that happened culturally.
Social life operate. If you look at the general trends in the industry, about 50 years ago, it was all about health and safety. Then it moved towards quality, and the Japanese invented on quality. I remember the tail end of my career on risk management. Everything was about risk, and risk management. Now it's just part of the business. All of a sudden, the trends move towards environmental sustainability. And today, actually, the biggest threat to sustainability is that it becomes irrelevant in that it's just part of life. And so all of a sudden now we're seeing a transition towards, okay, sustainability is needed. We have to be net zero. We have to be carbon neutral. What else is new? Well, now it's all about social license to operate, the ability that industry, big industry, and whereas these mines, these plants that were pragmatically hidden from view, no one ever saw them. They are in remote regions by design, by purpose. Now, when we look at major hospital projects, major roads, actually, we talk, Stefan talked about the difficulty permitting. It's because the laws and regulations force an engagement of the public and of the different sectors to ensure that ultimately projects not only are financially feasible, economically, but also socially acceptable. And most projects today are either canceled because they don't meet the criteria of social acceptability. And so that dynamic, that collaboration, as he talked about, is going to be probably the biggest challenge. It's not just about the financials and the economics and whether the project makes ultimate business sense or profit sense, but whether or not the public perceives there to be value for that project. And the only way to resolve that is through communication and working as an individual and as a team to sell those and to develop those projects as a joint collaborative nature rather than as a typical linear fashion.
And maybe moving away even more from this hierarchical governance of the project into more networks, right? So now external stakeholders can be part of the entire show, right? I have 10 minutes or even 9 minutes. I want to split it into a 5-minute to take more questions from the audience, but I have another tough question about how to move forward through a collaboration between academia and the industry. So do we have questions? All right, yeah.
Thank you. And it was a very nice presentation on the 3 aspects of the civil engineering, maybe the projects you can say. So I'll be very brief in my questioning, but before that, I just make 2 statements. One is that every civil engineering project is a different project or a new project. And that is one of the major reasons that why we are having the difficulty in applying AI or any such technology. And the second thing I will say that normally the cost and energy is only 5% when we construct the project. It is 95% when we use that particular project for the life line. So keeping these 2 aspects in mind, what I feel is that the first question, I will say that when we talk about the AI, obviously, as I said, it is very, very difficult because you can't learn from the data from the past because each project is different. So what I feel is that a better approach may be that collecting the data and then evaluating the data, and there the machine should be trained rather than on the data. So data on data. And then only those aspects may be common, and those common aspects can be used for the AI purpose. And the second question I want to ask is that are we going for the 3D printing? Because it's a very simple concept. We started with the lathe machine and we have come to the CNC. So whatever we put in the machine now in AutoCAD, automatically the tool gives us the final product. So same way, can we think in the civil engineering construction that whatever project drawings we give, and ultimately 3D or 3D printing will give us the final project. My second question is that to the role of AACE, they are basically the resource management. So what I strongly feel is their contribution in the sustainability and the energy may be limited. That is my feeling, because they are just managing the resources. So this is another problem which they may be facing, and how to overcome this, I don't know. And the last question, yes, sir?
Yes. There would be chance for chatting more. So maybe we can stick into the 3D printer. Does anybody want to comment on 3D printer? Yeah, go ahead.
So 3D printing technology is amazing, and the way it's advanced is quite exciting. You can see that I believe now we can 3D print a home using concrete 3D printers. I think the limitation is really the size of that 3D printing machine. Are we really going to create a 3D printing machine that can print high-rise buildings? I don't think so. But we're doing some pretty amazing things of pre-construction in factories where we're able to pre-construct elements, bring them to site, and put those elements together like Lego. So 3D printing I think is one aspect to pre-construction. And yes, the pre-construction industry is growing, but I think it's one tool in the tool belt of how we're constructing these days. But 3D printing and pre-construction is an important one that that is just going to increase in the future.
So yeah, maybe very quick.
Yeah, very quick. just to add to what you mentioned, 3D printing can be used as a complementary technology with the robotics. So adding like intelligence with the AI. So all together, they work together. So it's not something like we just go with 3D printing with the limitations you just mentioned.
So maybe we can take another minute to, because the second question was also excellent one about like besides managing resources, what other role do we have? I mean, thinking. Did I rephrase it correctly? So who wants to comment on that as construction firm? So do you ever consider yourself the business of, I don't know, using human resources or managing human resources or managing material and
all of the three, but I mean, ultimately, whether it's design, management or construction, this is a people business. Material resources are finite. They cost a certain cost. They have to be sourced. They have to be bought, transported, assembled, measured, surveyed. But who does it? Who gets it done? And so when we think about, the role of projects in the delivery, we shouldn't diminish the human element. And I say that, with a deep conviction. The worst thing we can do when thinking about projects is thinking about cost and schedule, because as Neil identified, projects are deemed a success or failure based on their health and safety performance. It just takes one incident for the best project with the highest profit margin and the best planning and the best BIM and the best drones and the best robots. And if someone gets injured, that project is deemed a failure, complete cataclysmic failure. And so we have to remember that ultimately, these tools, these systems, these processes, these materials serve to enable individuals, people to come together to deliver a product or solution. And so when we think about managing resources, yes, we think about financial resources, we think about human resources, we think about material resources.
And energy resources was also discussed earlier.
But projects live and die by the ability for individuals to agree on around the table.
Yeah.
You can have the best project, and if it was improperly managed, and if it costs more money and the schedule is completely off, in the end, the ability for a team, because projects are difficult, the projects are complex, the ability for a team to come together, understand what happened, look at the data, measure the data, adjust, react, adapt, and deliver is more important than the tools and systems to get that information. That's my perspective.
Okay,
What do you think?
thank you.
I agree with you. I mean, it's the thinking is all up here, right? And it's in everybody's head. It's not, the AI facilitates, but it's not the be all and end all. I mean, it's just a tool.
That's fantastic link to my next question, actually, because there were some thoughts about what should be the role of AI and whether it does matter that I do understand this black box and what it does or not. Well, with all due respect to me as an AI specialist, it's a little bit scary to put a lot of eggs into the basket of AI and assuming that AI will do everything for us and it can solve all the problems, cure the cancer, and I don't even need to understand how it does it. So here I think comes academia with two major contributions that it can give. Number one, of course, is training the next generation to better understand what's happening behind this black box. And number two, to develop ready to deploy solutions. The problem is many of us in academia have been distancing ourselves from applied, ready to deploy solutions. And we're deep philosopher thinkers, and it's not good for me. No, I'm not. That's not my role. It's not that, I mean, those days anymore, I believe. And as an quick example, and then I would like to open to what your thoughts are for a more meaningful collaboration between the two entities. We have recently, like 2 years ago, we opened a new institute called Applied AI Institute, Concordia. And everyone was laughing at us at that time, and they were like, "You're next to Polytechnique," and they are very well known. Milo is very well known as the main hub, not in Montreal, not in Quebec, maybe worldwide, one of the main hubs for doing basically machine learning, deep learning, and AI. The term deep learning was coined here. So one of the godfathers of deep learning is here. And surprisingly enough, 2 years later, the amount of funding, the amount of projects, the amount of interest that we're absorbing is unbelievable. The reason is because from day zero, we set our strategy as we are applied AI. So we are not going to develop not contribute or limit our contribution to those fundamental developments to the mathematics, but what problems it can solve. So I think more and more, at least in construction, more and more these types, this is my humble opinion, by the way, more and more these type of solutions are needed. So to summarize what was said and then pass it back to the panel, I think we talked about the technology development needs for having tools to give the push to the industry. And then we talked about the need for business process re-engineering, like re-engineering, rethinking the processes. Would those tools be available? And we agreed on the fact of the impossible or next to impossible cultural change. Now, I would like to hear from that corner of the table back to here. What are your thoughts? How do you think the industry and academia can join or create a joint venture for us not to wait for 15 years from now to see the changes? What are the thoughts?
Thanks for the question. That's a fascinating matter. I think that eventually, whether we deliver a service or a product all around us, around the table, our objective is to deliver something of the best quality to our clients. Human being, equipment, materials, systems, tools, AI are all Legos. We heard that before, so that when we assemble them, we can create the prototype, because each project is a prototype that is of quality. So we need to make sure that alchemy works. So the first collaborate with each other is for us to understand what academia can give us in terms of added value services. Probably you will need to pitch at a lower level than what you're used to, because every method that we implement has to be readily usable either on site or in the office. So it cannot have a huge cost of deployment. And on our end, we tell you the output or the outcome that we would need, and you will help us build a path forward between the inputs, what you can give, and the outputs, what we need, so that you will contribute to building that box of Legos. You may not be able to give us all the Legos, but that's okay. We discussed about human resources and management of equipment and all of that. Eventually, you will be able to bridge some of the gaps or the shortfalls or the weaknesses that we have in being more efficient, being more controlled, being probably more productive. Because as we said before, everywhere the data exists, it's for us to understand it. And it's of such volume now that human being probably, at least me, we don't have the capacity to do so. So I think there are lots of ways to collaborate with each other.
Well, no, of course, ladies first.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to it from an engineering standpoint that since we are ahead of construction, maybe having a first pitch of what academia can do will give us an understanding and a knowledge of what we can consider in the engineering portion of a project and already offer it as a solution from a construction standpoint when we plan our project, keeping the end goal in mind. If we are already aware of the technology that is available, what kind of solution can be already put forward, that would be great.
You all said thank you. Thank you very much, Sylvie.
Yeah, well, quite simply, I can tell you my job's not easy. And I have problems that need to be solved. I can tell you that everybody at Pomelo will tell you the same thing, that they have needs, that they have problems, that their job is not easy, and their job can be more efficient, and they might not know how, but they can tell you what elements of their job take time, take effort, and what they would like to see a solution for. So we have a process within Pomelo where we collect a lot of these issues, and we're happy to share them with academia. We do a lot of joint research with academia, but for me, that is a great way where industry and academia can work together, where from the industry side of things, we give you a list of all of the hard tasks that are happening across the construction industry. And we work together and find a way to find solutions using artificial intelligence, robotics, or any of the other technologies that we talked about today to bring solutions to the construction industry.
Well, I agree with both actually, but I think prerequisite is for you to know what value academia can add. Yep. You were mentioning earlier about the unstructured nature of the data in construction being a problem. And I was thinking, this is what we're doing for living for the past 7 years. We've been just in the business of unstructured data, processing it, retrieving, and making it structured. And I never been approached by any construction company asking me, can you solve this? The blame is at me for being, proactive and going and talking to me. So I think these events like this probably can help better. This side of the table, Neil or Ali, do you have something?
Yeah, I think I'll say that you've seen the examples of BIM, now we talk about 4D modeling. I have a perspective that ultimately for engineering companies to survive, we ultimately have to transform into software companies. And what that means is that it's weird to think of engineering as software, but realistically, all of our tools, it's all software. We have obviously an arm of our company that focuses on the hardware elements. So they do SCADA control systems, junction boxes, panels, digital assets. But ultimately, a lot, and I would say 99% of what engineering design does is software, and the entire digital transformation is tied to software integration. So any engineering company that is still stuck on plans and drawings and sketches is now dead. And any company that doesn't embrace software transformation is going to die. And so the engineering industry, whether it's automation of PDF files, whether it's automation of drawings, whether it's revision management, whether it's CAD modeling, 3D modeling, drone surveys, laser scan surveys, importing Revit models into different softwares, AutoCAD, Autodesk, PDMS, Viva, Bentley, you name it. There are 10 million pieces of software. The biggest challenge that engineering companies face is integration of software based on evolving client requirements and the management of information workflows from one department to another. In the day-to-day engineering, whether it be in structural, mechanical, piping, and all that data feeds back to project controls, the Sylvie's team. I'm actually working with Sylvie, work with Neil. The workflows around information management and information transfer in an engineering company requires complete overhaul of software systems and software workflows. And so whether it be from a project controls perspective, cost engineering, structural engineering, schedule management, don't underestimate the fact that engineering is now a software business.
Well, it's
a
6:03. I have to close. Sylvie, do you have something to add or can I close?
No, that's good. I just want to echo
I
what
felt you
Ali has said.
So,
Yeah.
so maybe to summarize, what I can say is, well, it's the best time for doing these type of collaborations. Teaming up with the academia, we typically put together a multidisciplinary team. I never go into a project without a colleague from computer science, computer engineering, sometimes even social sciences. And the government is super supportive. So for any dollar that the company puts in, government at least matches $1. Nowadays, there are mechanisms that the leverage becomes 2. So every dollar will be matched with $2 and even 2.25 as we speak. So I believe that the timing is right. I can't agree more with the problem should be identified and defined from the industry side, and then the solution to be thought through from the academia. And I think another message was ready to deployment, or at least a mature solution, not something that's yet just to be tested to see where we're going. So I think that's a very good conclusion of tonight. I really, really thank everybody for this 5 minutes stretch, and I hand it back to Dana to close.
the last thing that I want to mention is that upcoming event on November 5th that is organized by AACE Montreal section of NDFAT and companies. These are basically things for
If everyone